Yes, we are live on Monday. We're going to be looking at a GitHub Attack Diagram, K8s Testing environment, a new one from Orca, and Facebook is listening to what you do.
He's Mike. I'm Steve. Welcome to Wired In.
Yes, a Monday episode, 10 articles, 10 breakdown from yours truly, Steve and myself.
All of the articles are in the notes below. Hit the bell to be notified when we go live because, hey, it's Monday. So
Yeah,
that's not normal.
we're just going live when we have updates for you, and this Monday's got a pretty packed show. We'll kick it off with AT&T. They're in the news because they're suing Broadcom. AT&T is taking Broadcom to court. For those who don't know, Broadcom bought out VMware. Massive acquisition that was a year ago, I think now, pretty much. Everything's been closed. VMware just had their recent event, but the brief of this article is that the subscription services are getting jacked up and AT&T can't come up with the prices, it seems like. And so they're suing for a continuance. Apparently they're going to get shut out in a week or so.
Yeah. I think obviously VMware used to be a little a la carte, I think is even the phrase in here, right? Because they were kind of, I don't know, people stopped using them. You get more flexible. They succeeded with an exit, but now it's like, I don't know. I think Broadcom is saying what we were going towards standardization and subscription services anyway. But I mean, if you're the size of AT&T and you got VMware all over the place, you can't change as fast as they want you to. So it's a problem.
For sure. It's definitely not going to help, especially post VMware Explorer event. It's not going to help with any good marketing for them.
Yep, good point.
Right. So we'll see what comes with it. Yeah, I think they also threatened to withhold support. So they're basically saying like you have to subscribe, otherwise we're pulling all of these services. And AT&T is saying you can't threaten us with something like this, especially such large deals with so many intertwined services. So going to be interesting to see what happens in the future in that relationship, and if it's going to sour over time. It doesn't seem like a good start.
When that stuff like this becomes public, like there's going to be a whole bunch of other AT&Ts out there that use VMware through Broadcom, and they're probably all going, oh. So who knows who else might get on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah.
Watch this space. All right.
Speaking of other souring relationships, I think Pavel is out in France, right? But Telegram has recently changed its tone on moderating private chats after CEO's arrest. Shocker. This is crazy news.
Yeah, it's we talked about this. Was it last show? We talked about this, and I likened it to was it Silk Road? But and suddenly he's there's a good quote here, but I don't know. Did he made a statement, but also they changed their own, is it like their terms and conditions or their FAQ page? That's it. Their FAQ page changed, and some of the statements like that promise privacy suddenly vanish. It's like, okay, interesting.
You can't have moderation and privacy. It just doesn't exist. That being said, they are offering their private chats, but like group chats, shared group chats. When they said it was private, they just meant nobody was going to go in there. It didn't mean that it was encrypted or that people couldn't go in or give it to the authorities. They're basically just saying, listen, if the authorities want to use moderating tools on our data, we're going to allow them to do it now.
Yeah,
which obviously is a massive change to the terms and conditions / what you signed up for. That being said, encryption between peer-to-peer services is still there. That's something that they can't crack. The moral of this story, at least from following it for 2 weeks, is when you sign up for some sort of messaging service, just make sure it's not stored anywhere. If it's peer-to-peer encrypted, there's not much anybody can do. Anything else, anything short of that, it's not safe.
Okay. Hey, I have the wrong article here. 2 seconds.
Yes, originally I had one in here, and it was the White House wanted to make canceling subscriptions as easy as signing up, which is just good news in general. But Steve did find a better one, so I'll let him take the wheel here.
It's here. I overwrote it. Yeah, you probably already knew this. Some of the stars on GitHub are fake. Oh no! But there was some research that that was undertaken here and found not just some 3.7 million fake GitHub stars, usually in most cases to amplify what is already a malicious repository in the first instance, so that you think that I can trust this. Stars are my only method of knowing, outside of third-party commercial software that that can monitor and tell whether there's operational risk associated with a repository or an open source library. But on your own, I mean, I don't know what you think, Foster. You look at the stars, you go, okay, this has the most stars, I can trust it. And it turns out fake stars matter, and there are risks associated with that. This research was, I think, pretty fascinating, because they're using a heuristic to find the stars. And as part of this, what blew my mind is when I got down to how the fake stars were discovered here. The GitHub archive, I'm going to click right through, data set. This is a clone of everything that's ever happened on GitHub. And you can use BigQuery to ask it questions. This is cool. So I'm like, as a result, this is why I had to put this article in here, because like, not only do you find out about all these fake stars and analyzing spikes in stars and when they occur, because you can actually buy people like who create 1,000 accounts and give you stars. But the methods they use to detect that, but the fact that they use this, I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. And now my brain's like going, how do I put this into AI and ask it questions about GitHub?
Yeah, an archive of GitHub, which is already version controlled. I was going to think, like, I guess you use this to go back and find anything that's like Apache 2.0 license. You just search for that in terms of projects, and you can find the exact time that Terraform switched its license over, right?
It's cool. Like, you could do it, I suppose, if you were a painstaking GitHub API, but I mean, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, for those of you out there who didn't know this existed, very cool.
Yeah, tool time, maybe, if we ever have those coming up again. All right, on to the fourth article. We have the FTC urging smart device makers to say how long they will be supported for. Now, if you've ever bought a device with a subscription service or something that has a free and then subscription service, you may notice that over time, those free features get moved over to the paid version over time. And the FTC wants to crack down on that, because there seems to be this sort of, hey, everything's open source, then you start adopting it and you use it. And it's like slowly, you have to start paying for it. They want to cut down on that. I thought this was very interesting, because I'm wondering, will open source projects be something have to abide by the terms and conditions of the FTC, right? Where if basically all of the developers of an open source project are paid for by a specific business, by a startup or something like that, that they can't just all of a sudden lock people out or move features over only into the paid version. I'm curious.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, this is specifically around the hardware, right? So something that is hardware and software supported, but you could see something like that bleeding over into other areas of the industry, especially if it's successful.
I like it. I think it's a good idea. All right. This, you mentioned at the start of the show, Kubernetes test environments, Orca research. This is, even though it's by Orca, it's meant to be vendor agnostic. So it's like a gift to the world. And it's testing different open source security offerings on the fly in a multitude of different cloud providers. Of course, the usual top three: AWS, GCP, and Azure. You can provision, you can test, you can run your tests against it. It's interesting. Now, what isn't here is that I also saw that there's some sort of, yes, I'm going to say it, AI involved in how this works somehow. I have yet to dive in. You mentioned we haven't done a tool time in forever, but this would be a fun thing to prop up and try. I don't know if you, specifically, Foster, have had time to look at this or have anything you can riff on in terms of like an OpenShift. Would it work on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got to try it out. I have to see exactly what they did for how they deployed it. But it's pretty awesome. I mean, if you have a few cloud credits and you want to try out a bunch of open source security tools, go ahead, right?
Yeah. I mean, the basic support right now is pretty good. It's got Polaris Core, Trivy, kubesec, Chekhov, and kubescore. I don't know how it all brings it together. I only just heard about it this morning, but it definitely has piqued my interest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a clean environment. Very nice. Apache 2.0 license. Awesome. I remember I have something like this in my Terraform libraries personally, where I can start up Kubernetes services on all the major cloud providers. And then I would just go and install using Helm into those providers, right? So it's just automated all that for you. I
Yeah,
guarantee this is probably somebody's pet project because they were doing evaluations in this way. And they're like, okay, let's just open source it. And here you can try us. And then you can try these open source tools and you'll realize there's definitely a competitive aspect here too, right?
probably. Cool. All right. Are we transitioning into the more erratic?
You got it. Yes, London. London is calling us. Transport for London outages drag on into the weekend after a cyber attack. Now, Transport for London is the name for the
Let's say
organization that oversees all
TTC.
the services. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's all of your transport. It could be buses, underground, you name it, right? In London. A very good website, by the way. And not too surprised that someone would try to mess with it, but I didn't actually, this is my skepticism. I didn't think that their infrastructure, their technological infrastructure would be advanced enough for somebody to actually be able to mess with it. It doesn't seem like it would be, but kind of interesting that somebody has. There isn't much detail here, unless I missed it, as to what. Oh, there it says right there. Details of the incident remain scarce. Um, and they're telling everybody to work from home because apparently HQ has been somewhat corrupted. I don't know. Is it ransomware? I have no idea, unless you've heard anything else.
Well, I think it could be a few things. One, it could be access to internal systems, and they just said, we're getting everybody out. We're shutting this thing down until we can figure out what's going on. I'm sure they have some sort of policy in place that based off specific action, they have to take some sort of action after that. And that's what we're seeing here. So the fact that everybody's staying at home, that everybody's basically away from their systems, my guess is internal actor insider threat, and they're just trying to contain and figure out what exactly is going on. And the easiest way to do that is to make sure everybody's home until they can verify everything is safe and that there are no other inside threat actors that can get into the office / get into their systems. You did bring up that the services are somewhat separate, and maybe old. So I'm wondering if the threat actor got access to one system, they saw that that person got access, and then they were able to shut down the one system, right? While sort
Yeah,
of leaving some
yeah.
of the other services up. So,
Old can be a good thing or a bad thing. You never know.
yeah, security by obscurity,
Yep.
definitely there. All right, on to GitHub Actions. In the title, you found this one. Take it away.
Yeah, it's very cool. Not only does it list, like, this give you a whole bunch of really awesome references in terms of exploits in the wild that you can go and get more information on from a GitHub Actions perspective, but they created this diagram, which is going to be you're gonna have to go to the links at the bottom to get a good image of this. But there is, if you click through, basically an attack diagram that they've created, which there's no way I'm going to make this look good here, is it? But it's a vector diagram, so you can zoom it in. But it's going through. Okay, repository uses GitHub Actions. How do I from here, this sort of ridiculously complicated flow chart on how to attack? So it's fascinating from both an offensive and a defensive perspective, because you can look at it and go, okay, all right, how do I prevent these paths from being undertaken by some would-be attacker? And is anybody doing this? Well, yeah, see below. There's a whole bunch of examples here where we can show you how this kind of these paths can be executed. So I think it's a really good supply chain defensive repository.
Mm-hmm. And definitely sheds light on what security teams actually want to see, not just like a
Right.
risk prioritization, but what's the actual path? And do I have a path that's similar that somebody could take? Then you can take corrective actions a lot easier and faster.
100%.
All right. I think we should have swapped that one with one of the other articles because that's less WTF and more useful. Pretty cool. Pretty cool resource. Check the link out in the description below. But on to something a little crazier. Facebook partner admits to eavesdropping on conversations via phone mics and ad targeting.
What a surprise.
Are we shocked?
No. I mean, is this even legal? Like,
No,
how many
definitely not.
every single person who has ever had any phone or anything has said, or I pick up your phone when you've gone to the bathroom at the pub, and I just say, underpants, underpants, underpants at your phone, and now all your ads are underpants.
Okay.
I mean,
That's
we've
why I've been
all
getting weird
experienced.
ads lately. That's good to know. I think it's just I'm very happy that I have the iPhone that shows when the microphone is on or off, or camera is working or not working, or location services, etc. Definitely a must-have. One of the more interesting thoughts, I never thought this was useful just because the byte collection alone would be too much. But with hardware getting so good, it seems more reasonable that people could take snippets of your conversation and build profiles, especially if you have
Mhm.
known associates that are together and things of that sort, maybe at your home or your office.
I think so. I mean, I feel like I've seen evidence that it's actually happening. It's just after Facebook and everything else saying no, no, we don't do it. To have was it Cox Media Group 404 Media is actually saying, oh no, yeah, we definitely do that. Why? Like, oh, okay. Thanks for confirming what we thought we already knew.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the mechanism is internally in the application to allow for something like this. Like that a
Hmm.
microphone could just get turned on remotely.
Well, yeah, it called it active listening or something like this, but it's like, and of course they mention AI being involved. What a
Mhm.
surprise.
Or something where you install an application, and then when you have Facebook up, if you leave it up and running, it technically has the ability to do that. Anyways,
Mhm.
I gotta try to figure this one out after the show. All right, 2 more left in our weekly firing. Cohere makes the news. Cohere lays off 5% of staff a day after announcing 500 million USD Series D. Say that 5 times fast. I looked into this one because I was looking at the total market for NVIDIA GPUs, and I was looking at who was buying up all these, and Cohere is, like, actually a big player in this space. You know,
Mm.
OpenAI, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, obviously up there, but Cohere is massive.
Mm.
And you gotta think that all that spending on GPUs means they have to slash the burn rate somewhere else. But Cohere
Oh,
is a Toronto-based AI company. They're focused on B2B sales, so building the AI applications so that other businesses that don't have the talent can hook into their applications and use their inferences and set them up. It's pretty cool.
yeah.
Um, would suck to be a part of that 5% though.
Yeah, what is the it makes me wonder what is that 5%? But we talked about this last week a little bit when you're laying people off, and you're a startup and you're pivoting into a certain direction where the money's coming from. Well, maybe you hired some people that you're like, all right, we're not going to focus on that anymore. Sorry, we don't really need you anymore. I don't think people who are being laid off from a huge AI startup are going to be out of work too long at this in this current AI central market, right?
Mhm.
If you've got that kind of experience and you're like, all right, I'm just going to go to one of the other 10,000 startups that just have emerged to do with AI, and having any experience in AI at this point is a lot.
It is very shocking to see a startup layoff though.
Yeah,
Just
for sure.
normally you just hit the ground running and layoffs, they're not great. So 5%, that typically means a BU or a group or some sort of organization that gets laid off. It's probably not, hey, we just don't like these 5 people because Cohere is not a massive business either.
Hmm.
So 5%, well, I mean, well, not insignificant. It's a lot, but yeah, interesting one. Anyways, check back in 2 weeks. We'll have another firing for you. It's the season.
Yeah.
All right, last
Okay.
one.
This is huge, and this is probably too geeky for many of our viewers. So if you're like you're watching this and your ears just perked up and said, "Hey, nothing's too geeky for me. Hit me with this." This article, when you move, you probably can't see it on the screen. You can a little bit when you move the article, and then you see what the scroll bar looks like over here, and it's like a dot. You're like, "Oh, this might be too geeky for me." But this does go through a breakdown on these cameras, the Wise cameras, and the various versions of them, to the point where they go to the final version that actually does use Edge AI. You can see Edge AI person detection. Like when you have one of those cameras and it's like it knows your face is there and you can just move all over. And unlike my camera,
Yeah.
follows your face. Yeah, it goes into how they were able to get remote code execution and even a shell inside the camera, which is kind of dangerous because it's your camera in your house. It's called gray box because Wise actually released their firmware. Like it's not closed source. You can go look at it. So what this goes through they went and got the firmware, and it's a step-by-step on, all right, so we had the file system. We looked at the file system. We found the Edge AI directory. We went through and found the launch.sh. We looked at what it was executing. We went from the launch.sh and found the core libraries. We worked out how to decrypt, and then we're using Wireshark. And it's like, whoa, this is cool. Like the amount of effort that went into making this article to show you how you go from, all right, it's just a webcam. You've got your firmware out there. We break it out. And then from there, they're not in the camera yet, but they're looking at, like, if I were to build a camera using the same structure and software, how much of it is open source? How can I use this knowledge to have, like, what they call gray box hacking? I now know what's happening inside this camera. And eventually they find it's sort of doing, when you're in programmatically, you actually do a shell command. So you can, like, do an exec or something like that. And you can run something within the operating system. And it was doing it based on an SSID that had been passed in, which is now you work out, oh, wait, I can control the SSID. So now they're back ticking out an SSID, passing it into the camera when it starts, and now suddenly, bam, they have a shell inside the camera. And then they start abusing the AI side of it. And it's almost like a walkthrough of a capture the flag. Like, here's a camera, try and get inside the camera. And it goes through every step that they took. And if you're really keen on those kind of things, like, what would I do first? I think you'll love this article because it's a super fascinating breakdown on how to get into an IoT device like this.
And so this was all on the V3 camera, but then they talk about upgrading the vulnerability to V4. Right?
Yeah. They start on the original camera, and then they go up to the V4 cameras, which are the ones that actually have the Edge AI.
Well, they say V4 uses Bluetooth instead of a QR code to configure the camera, which really changed the attack mechanism.
It is pretty cool. All right, so how far down did you get in this? Because it took me like an hour to read this.
I'm literally halfway through this point. This is a very in-depth article. I'm thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, it's super cool. So again, there's no way we can break this down on the show, but I think this is a fascinating look at IoT device security. So check it out.
Yeah, like Steve said, all the links are in the description below. Make sure you hit that bell so you know when we go live. We'll probably see you again in 2 weeks. We'll have a few little updates for you. But I want to say thanks for joining.
All right, 10 articles, 10 breakdowns, the wildest news. He's Mike. I'm Steve.
This is Wired In. Catch you next time.